We are on the record for hearings in the matters listed in the North Dakota Industrial Commission hearing docket for February 23rd. I am David Garner, hearing examiner for these hearings. We are at the hearing room for the Department of Mineral Resources, Oil and Gas Division, and it is 9 a.m. We have two cases on today's docket, which we will consolidate. I'll move right to them and call case number 30663. One quick second. Are you all set, Lawrence, with your witness?
Yes,
Okay.
I am.
Case number 30663, application of Resonance Exploration North Dakota LLC for an order of the Commission determining that the plan of unitization for the Southwest Tope Charles Huber unit area, Bottineau County, North Dakota, has been signed, ratified, or approved by owners of interest owning that percentage of the working interest and royalty interest within said unit as is required by applicable statutes and rules of the Commission. And also case number 30664, petition of Resonance Exploration North Dakota LLC for an order providing for the unitized management, operation, and further development of the proposed Southwest Tope Charles Huber unit area consisting of lands within the Southwest Tope Field in Bottineau County, North Dakota, for approval of the unit agreement and unit operating agreement constituting the plan of unitization for the proposed Southwest Tope Charles Huber unit area, for approval of the plan of operation, vacating the applicable spacing orders, and for such further and additional relief. All interested parties, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Excuse me, Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in these consolidated matters on behalf of Resonance Exploration North Dakota LLC. Resonance intends on calling 3 witnesses this morning. The first witness will be in the area of land, Ms. Jody Gosling, G-O-S-L-I-N-G. Our second witness will be a geologic witness, Mr. Gary Walker, W-A-L-K-E-R. And then our final witness will be an engineering witness, Don Gallant, G-A-L-L-A-N-T. Mr. Examiner, given the fact that you graciously agreed to consolidate these matters, we'll just point out early on that we'll be taking some, the land witness will be discussing some land exhibits in case 30664, and then to save some time in the hearing this morning, she will then move to the ratification case 30663 and discuss what's contained in that one exhibit.
Okay. Ms. Gosling.
You guys on mute? Can't hear you.
I'm done.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Good morning.
Good morning.
Ms. Gosling, do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Jody, I'm going to have you start by stating your full name for the record, please.
This is Jody Gosling.
And Jody, by whom are you employed?
I'm employed by Resonance Exploration North Dakota.
In what capacity?
I am in land.
Okay. And have you testified before the commission previously?
I have.
Okay. And have your qualifications been accepted as that of an expert?
Yes.
No, for the further testimony, this witness is that of an expert.
Motion granted.
Jody, let's turn first to the packet of exhibits for case 30664. It starts out with a cover sheet, and then it has like I'll call it a title page, and then there's an exhibit after that, which has been previously marked as Exhibit 1. What I'd like you to do, Jody, is identify Exhibit 1 and then briefly discuss what's contained upon it.
Sure. So Exhibit 1 is the greater area map within Bottineau County, and it shows the lands we're discussing today that are located southeast of West Hope and about southwest of Landa.
Okay, and then you have on that map I won't call it a square, but a tract outlined in a bold green line. Can you tell us what that is?
That is the land that we are discussing today for the proposed unit.
Okay, and I know another witness is probably going to get into this in a little bit more detail, but this is also a current existing spacing unit for some wells that Resonance has drilled in this area. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay, let's go on to the next exhibit, which has been previously marked as Exhibit 2. Can you tell us what Exhibit 2 is?
Sure. Exhibit 2 shows that residents has leased 100% of this land that is currently in the DSU and for the proposed unit.
Okay, and then let's go to Exhibit 3. Tell us what Exhibit 3 is.
Okay, Exhibit 3 shows the land with the actual well located on.
Located on the existing spacing?
Yes, on the existing spacing outline.
Okay, and again, that existing spacing outline is going to be your proposed unit outline as well, is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, and you show 3 wells on here, and I know you're not an engineer, you're not a geologist, but is it your understanding that 2 of those wells are currently producing, and the Stratton 16-12H, which you have labeled as an injector well, that's currently part of a pilot project that that residents previously requested and the commission approved, is that correct?
Yes, there is 3 legs there for the well. Only one of the legs is producing, though.
Okay, and we
Oh,
can,
all 3 are producing. Pardon me.
yeah, we can have the engineering and geologic witness discuss that, but in terms of
Okay.
the injector, that's part of a current pilot project, is that right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Now I'm going to turn your attention to, or I'd like you to turn your attention to the packet of exhibits for case 30663. And I said packet of exhibits. I think we'd like this labeled as Exhibit 1, and then we'll just talk through the different tabs. And do you have that exhibit in front of you, Jody?
I do.
Okay, let's go to tab 1. Tab 1 is a copy of the unit agreement, is that correct?
Yes.
And tab 2 is a copy of the unit operating agreement, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And tab 3 is a summary of the royalty owner ratifications, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, let's take a closer look at the royalty ratifications. What you have done here, as I understand it, you've taken the Exhibit B from the unit agreement, and you've just added another column as to those owners that have ratified. Is that your understanding?
Yes, it is.
And of those owners that have now ratified the unit, what is the percentage of consent that you have listed on your, on this particular portion of Exhibit 1?
70.29%.
My exhibit says 66.45%. Is that what your exhibit says?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then since this exhibit was filed, residents has picked up an additional ratification. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you, Lawrence.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And that's the heirs and devisees of Elva J. Oaks, who are deceased. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that would bring the percentage of ratification to what percent?
To the 70.29%.
Yeah. And it's my understanding, Jody, that there may have been some confusion on the part of some of the royalty owners that ratifications came back and they were dated but not signed. Is that also your understanding?
Yes, it is.
And we're going to request that the commission leave the record open a few additional days after this hearing so that we can submit additional executed versions of those ratifications. Is that correct?
Yes.
And in your opinion, is it beyond the realm of possibilities that you may end up with 100% ratification?
Yes.
Okay. Well, let me rephrase that. Do you think it's possible that after you get all the ratifications, that you could end up with 100%?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, thank you. Let's go on to the next tab, then tab 4. And I think that's tab, well, I think that we were Yeah, tab 4, these are the actual ratifications that residents has received that have been executed, is correct?
Yes,
And that's really sort of backup information for your summary that you've just discussed as tab 3, correct?
yes.
Okay, and then let's go to tab 5. My understanding is tab 5 is a summary of the working interest owners.
You're correct.
And I believe you testified earlier that residents owns 100% of the working interest in this proposed unit. Is that correct?
Yes, that is.
Okay. And so obviously residents supports this unit, so you have depicted on Exhibit D that residents, or excuse me, that there's 100% support of the working interest owners, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then finally, I think finally here, or tab D, or excuse me, tab 6, sorry about that. That is basically the signature pages for the unit agreement and the unit operating agreement executed by Gary Walker, who's the president and chief operating officer of Resonance.
Yes.
I think that's all the questions I have, Mr. Examiner, for Ms. Gosling.
Any questions from the staff?
Lawrence, Article 5 typically has a participation
Unit
formula.
agreement or unit operating agreement?
The unit agreement.
Okay. Can you give me just a moment to get there? Do you know what page it's on?
Six.
Page 6, okay. Just one more moment. Article 5. Yep, I'm there.
Article 5 typically has an allocation formula
Yes.
in there. And this one does not. Is that something that can be added?
Well, actually, it does have a participation formula, because what we're saying is it's comprised of one tract, and we're going to be dispersing revenue to those owners on a tract basis. So if one party, one working interest owner owns 100%, so I think it's better if I use an example as a royalty owner. If the, give me a second here. We are talking about the unit area being 640 acres. So if one royalty owner would have 320 acres in that 640 acre one tract, then that owner would get 50% of the royalty. It's being dispersed based on a acre basis.
So this is solely an acre basis?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Jody or Lawrence, Article 17, page 13.
Okay, if you can give me just a minute here. Okay,
It addresses termination by working interest owners. It does not address termination by mineral owners or royalty owners. Is that because that's set out in statute, or?
yes, I think you're exactly right, Mr. Helms. That is statutory. I suppose it could be included in here, but whether it is or it is not, the royalty owners would have the statutory authority to dissolve, and we certainly wouldn't have any objection if the commission wanted to include that in its order. But once again, I don't think it's necessary because the statute already provides for it.
Okay, I want to make sure that was on the record. It's in the statute and probably would be a finding in the order.
Yeah, I don't recall ever including it in the unit agreement or unit operating agreement, but if that's something in the future the commission would like to see, we're happy to do that.
In the unit operating agreement, Exhibit E is the COPUS. And it's included, but everything is blank. Is that because there's just one working interest owner? And so they don't need to talk about charging themselves overhead or rig rates or?
Yeah, that's what we had in mind, Mr. Helms. Certainly, again, I suppose something like that could be included in the event that the residents were to split its own ownership and convey a portion of its interest to another party. But because it's in the working interest portion of this, or excuse me, in the unit operating agreement, I would think that the working interest owners could probably reach an agreement on that at the point of sale. But once again, if that's something the commission would like to see at this point in time, I'm sure residents would have no objection to completing Exhibit E.
How would that work if they sold part of their working interest? Then there would need to be an operating committee, and they would have to agree on rates and those sorts of things. Is that laid out in here, how all that works? If there's an operating committee?
I believe so. Just if you can give me a second. It's usually in Article 3 talks about supervision of operations by working interest owners. So I believe Article 3, those various sections in there would address all the issues having to do with how the unit would be operated in the event that there was more than one working interest owner.
Thank you.
Lawrence or Jody, in the unit agreement, Article 16.2 talks about the termination.
Can you say that again? 16 what?
16.2,
Okay, if you can just give me a moment again. Okay, I'm there.
talks about the ipso facto termination. And is that meant to mean that it terminates if they don't fulfill the ratifications essentially?
Yes, that provision is in, I think, just about every, or maybe every unit agreement that I have ever been involved in with before the commission. And you are precisely correct that in the event that residents would not receive 55% of the royalties and 55% of the working interest consent prior to December 31st of 2024, this unit would terminate automatically. But since we're already there, it's sort of meaningless. And I can only think of one situation where this provision has been in here. I think it was actually, may have been a typographical error, but we had a relatively short period of time for the termination, and the unit didn't terminate, so we had to go back and amend the unit agreement to change that date. So it's not necessarily meaningless. Sometimes it takes some time to get the ratifications, but this provision is included so you don't have a situation so that it can linger on forever and ever.
So is this article in contrary to 3808 9.5, which allows 6 months after the unit is approved by the commission for it to be ratified?
Well, I would say that if the time period for ratification that the commission enters in its order is shorter than this period of time, then the commission's order would govern. But if the commission's order extends that date, I would say that this probably would govern.
But 3808 9.5 says that you have 6 months to get it ratified, essentially. And so if this order were signed on May 1st, the December 31st date would be beyond the 6 months at that point. So is that contrary to what the Century Code says?
I mean, I see the point you're making, but it's always difficult to, well, it's not always, it is difficult or impossible to put this agreement together not knowing when the commission will enter an order. So we put a termination date in here. I wouldn't have any objection if the commission were to include in its order that notwithstanding this provision, that that we have, 6 months from the date of the order to get it ratified. And once again, I think that's a moot point for this case because we've already got it. I'll have to give that some more thought before we file another application so that we don't have that as an issue. But good catch.
And here. Exhibit C at the top says the track participation factors. And so, but I think you clarified earlier with Stephen's question that the participation is gonna be based on acreage.
Right.
And then in the COPUS, the overhead rate is prime plus 3%. I think typically the commission has seen prime plus 2%. Is there a reason for the 3%?
Perhaps the geologic witness, who also is basically the CEO of the company, perhaps he can answer that question.
And then I assume that,
Just a second, Gary. You can answer it when we get to you.
and then the unit name that's been proposed is the Charles Huber unit. Huber is just the well name that,
Yeah, that was difficult for us to, come up with a name because, as you notice from looking at the exhibits, we're unitizing such a small area, and Huber comes from the wells that are on the spacing unit. So that's the reason for selecting that. If the commission decided to have some other approach, we didn't think it was appropriate because it was only a portion of the field to just call it the Southwest Charles unit. Sometimes the commission will unitize a portion of a unit and call it the north or the south or the east or the west, but this is kind of in the middle and it's a relatively small area. That's the name. That's why we selected the name we did. But once again, if the commission has a better approach, I have no problem with that.
so is there, and maybe your geologic or other witness can answer, so is there a chance there could be more units in this field?
That's something I think I would also address to Mr. Walker.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Walker,
Yes,
do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
yes, I do.
Gary, state your full name for the record, please.
Gary Walker,
And Gary, by whom are you employed?
a Residence Energy,
In what capacity?
the President and the Chief Operating Officer.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously?
Yes,
And you've had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
yes,
I'd offer the further testimony of this witness as that of an expert.
Motion granted.
Well, first of all, Gary, I apologize for getting your title wrong. I don't know if I demoted you or promoted you, but, and I also apologize for cutting you off when you were going to answer a question, but you'll have an opportunity to do that now. Let's turn to the next exhibit in the packet. Jody discussed exhibits 1 through 3. I would like you to go to exhibit 4. Can you identify exhibit 4 and then briefly describe what's contained upon it?
Exhibit 4 is a structure contour map on the Midale porosity. We used well data and some proprietary seismic data to construct this map. Also on the map is the oil-water contact, shown in red there at minus 1910 feet. And there's a blue line on the map, which is a structure. It's a cross-section that's later referred to in another exhibit.
Okay, let's go to exhibit 5.
Exhibit 5 is a Midale porosity net pay map. We used the wall data and a lot of data off of Exhibit 4 to make this map. Just to show the net pay of the of the interval that we're proposing to unitize, the Midale porosity.
Okay, and when you say a lot of data off Exhibit 4 to do Exhibit 5, in essence, what you're saying is you use both well data and seismic data, is that correct?
For both of these maps, correct?
Okay, and you had both 2D and 3D seismic?
Correct.
Okay, let's go on then to Exhibit 6. Can you tell us what Exhibit 6 is?
Exhibit 6 shows the cumulative oil and water production from the proposed unit area. In this case, there's one well that has produced oil and water and gas. That's the Residence Huber 1301 three-leg well. The production is shown on the map. In green is the oil production at 21,000 barrels, and blue is the water production, 40,000 barrels. And those numbers are through November 2023. Also on the map is the injector well that we drilled after we got approval for the pilot water flood. That's the Stratton 1612H well, which was drilled in between the legs of the Huber well, and that's been on injection since September of 2023, and we've seen well production more than double since we put that well on injection. In January, the Huber well produced 86 barrels of oil a day, so we're quite happy with our water flood response to date.
And when you talk about water flood, you're talking about the pilot program that was approved by the commission, is that correct?
That's correct.
And it was based on the information or the production that resulted from the pilot project that really forms the basis for residents appearing here today and asking for unitization so that water flood can continue indefinitely, is that correct?
Yes.
And maybe this is the appropriate place to talk about this. Perhaps Don can add more. But in terms of if this application is granted and you're allowed to go forth with the water flood, can you explain what, if anything, will change in terms of operations on this area that you have as labeled as proposed unitization?
We don't really see much changing out there from what we're doing right now.
Okay, and where's the water coming from as of now in terms of this pilot project?
It's produced water that we get from a well that's just northeast of the proposed unit area here, the Montgomery well.
Okay, is it also produced water from the wells that are producing from this proposed unitized area?
It's water from the Huber well in the unitized area, and there's some other Midale water from the Sturgis unit to the northeast of there that we're using also.
Okay, so it's not just a recycling operation. You are using what I would call makeup water to be added to what's being produced on the spacing unit, correct?
Yes.
Okay, let's go then to the next exhibit, Exhibit 7. Can you tell us what Exhibit 7 is?
Exhibit 7 is our type log, the over 1 of 11, permit number 538. And on the type log, you can see the proposed unitized section from the top of the Midale and Hydrate to the base of the State A as per the illustration. And you can also see the Midale subinterval. That's the productive interval that we're getting our oil from.
And as you have it depicted on your Exhibit 7, is this what you have described in the unit agreement as the unitized formation?
Yes.
Okay, and then let's go to Exhibit 8. Can you tell me what Exhibit 8 is?
Exhibit 8 is the cross-section that I briefly discussed. We were talking about, I believe it was Exhibit 4. Goes from, on Exhibit 4, goes from A to A primed. And the well in the northernmost well A there is the structural low. This is a structure section here. We've got the oil water contact shown in red. That's the minus 1910 foot interval. And we've also got the Midale porosity at the top of the Midale subinterval, which is the productive zone. The base of the productive zone is the top of the Mission Canyon, which is shown on here in green.
Okay, and the scale on this is very small, Gary. If the commission were to request PDFs of both Exhibit 7 and Exhibit 8 so that it could be enlarged and they could get, would just provide them with more information, would you have any objection to providing that?
No?
Okay. Gary, one of the questions that was posed to the previous witness was whether there would be any other areas in this field, the Southwest Hope Charles field or pool, that would be unitized. Do you have an opinion as to that?
There is some possibility of that happening. More drilling would have to take place, in our opinion, for that to happen.
Are there plans for additional drilling at this point in time, or is that just something that is on hold at this point in time?
It's on hold at this point in time. We're still working on our go-forward plan.
Okay. I know there was another question, but I can't remember exactly how it was phrased, so I believe I'll just let the staff ask that question so it's posed correctly. So, Mr. Examiner, I don't have any further questions of this witness.
Any questions from the staff?
Gary or Lawrence, is there any opposition to taking administrative notice of wells and geologic data in the area?
Absolutely not.
Gary, as Lawrence mentioned, please submit Exhibits 7 and 8 as a digital copy.
Okay?
Gary, you can just submit that to me and I'll get it to the commission.
Okay.
Could I have you turn to your Exhibit 4 and 5? Would you be able to supplement, or I guess submit a revised version of Exhibit 5 that shows that contour of the oil water contact on it as well?
Yes, we can do that.
And that oil water contact isn't necessarily following your zero net pay line. It looks like it comes up into the area where there might be up to 5 feet of net pay. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's not a perfect overlay, but it's pretty close.
Given that we have this net pay map in front of us, there are lands outside of the net pay that are included in the proposed unit boundary. Can you discuss why those lands were included outside of the net pay area?
Inside the proposed unit boundary, sorry?
Yes, for example, if we're looking at Exhibit 5, you have on the northeastern end of your unit, you show your zero net pay cutoff there, and there are lands outside of that net pay that are included in the proposed unitization boundary.
Yeah, we kept, because there's one DSU in here, and the tract of, that's the little pieces that are not, that have no pay in them. There is some like the tracts do have some net pay in them, the land tracts. Like there's no land tract that has zero net pay in it in terms of the mineral owners. And we just decided to keep it simple and just keep the unitized area the same as the drill spacing unit.
Would your land witness be able to provide a map showing those mineral interest tracts? That way we can see that those lands are common across?
Yeah, we can submit an additional exhibit that lays out the various ownership tracts within the proposed unit or the existing spacing unit, and submit that as a supplemental exhibit.
Okay, thanks. And could I have you turn to your Exhibit 7? On this exhibit, can you identify a depth equivalent or stratigraphic equivalent that your Stratton injector penetrated? Was it below the Mission Canyon or down to the State A? Can you describe that?
The injector it stayed in the Midale subinterval basically the entire time.
So the injector did not drop below the Mission Canyon?
That's correct. I don't think, that's going off my memory, I don't think it did at all. I think we just managed to stay in the Midale.
And with that being the case, is there a reason that the unitized interval was proposed down to the State A?
When we drilled the Huber well legs, some of those, they did touch the Mission Canyon, maybe went into it for slight periods of time, but not very much either. And so we thought that, that because of that we would have to put the Mission Canyon in the unitized subinterval. And also, in case somebody does decide to drill another water injector, we have no plans to do that, but somebody could go and drill another water injector in the unit in the future. And if they were to penetrate the Mission Canyon, then that would be a problem if it wasn't part of the unitized formation, I believe.
And it looks like the top of the Mission Canyon that's identified on this log by the green line, that was picked off of porosity markers, maybe resistivity.
Yes, both.
So when you were drilling that Huber well, did you identify those penetrations by a gamma pickup? That would be typically where the commission picks the Mission Canyon in this area, where that gamma marker increases just below that porosity marker.
Yeah, we never really got that far into it. We'll see the samples will change from limestone into anhydrite. And so we're using both the gamma and the lithology more than anything else.
And lastly, on your Exhibit 7, when you submit that revised version, can you, or when you submit the digital version, I should say, could you identify the oil-water contact on that log as well?
Yes.
Look, it's a bit hard to make out on Exhibit 8 from the cross-section, but it appears that oil-water contact on Exhibit 7 would be at approximately 3,400 feet.
Yes.
So right after the gamma drops down there, that's where the oil-water contact is.
Yeah. And it's a little bit subjective to the oil water contact. Like we looked at the old wells in the area. It's not easy to pick out here either. But we're quite confident that it's in more or less in that interval at minus 1910.
Was there a RW value that your oil-water contact was identified by?
We did some petrophysics, and we did use them. Some of the higher water saturations were, we did try and use the water saturation calculation. For an RW, I think we used 0.04, I think was what we used for an RW to get the water saturation calculations.
Okay, thank you.
Gary, as a point of clarification on your oil-water contact, you're using a resistivity in all cases. So in Figure 8, where you're defining, or Exhibit 8, excuse me, where you're defining that oil-water contact, that's all from a resistivity value? Or are you guys incorporating seismic or anything else into that oil-water contact?
We're also using the perf intervals in the old vertical wells that were drilled in the area and seeing what fluids that they made in terms of oil and water.
Okay.
So it's a combination of seismic, the log interpretation, and the historical production of the area.
Okay. On Exhibit 5, the Midale porosity net pay map, can you give a little detail as to what you're defining as net pay?
We're using generally anything that's got 12% or greater porosity, and of water saturation value that is, I can't remember the exact number. I think it's somewhere around, I'd have to go check what that is, but the porosity is 12%. And then we used our seismic and our well control to define anything that's above that minus 1910. But there are some anhydrite streaks in that, some that are in the Midale subinterval that we try and take them out of the net pay calculation.
Okay. That's all the questions I have for now.
Gary, on your Exhibit 5, the proposed unit area is less than what you've identified on your net pay map.
You said less. Is that right?
Yeah, the net pay.
Yes.
The net pay you have extends off to the west. Are the unit operations in this proposed unit going to affect those lands to the west?
We don't believe so. We think that the way we've configured our injector, that any of the oil and water that gets pushed and energized by the injector is all going to go into either one of the Stratton lakes.
Do you have any plans to drill a well in Section 11?
Not now, no. Potentially down the road, if in a couple of years, if we look at and we're quite happy with the performance of the water flood. But those three injectors, two of them are in the northeast of 11, and one of them is in the southeast of 2. I mean, those three old vertical oil wells, sorry. Two of them are now abandoned, and one of them is basically a stripper well. But they've all produced, between the three of them, they've produced close to 300,000 barrels. And so that's quite a bit of oil already been taken out of here. So for that reason, we don't have any plans to drill anything in Section 11 this time.
Okay, thank you.
Mark, did you want to ask the question about the COPUS? I think you had some question. Gary would probably be the person to answer that.
Yeah, Gary, in the COPA's agreement, the overhead rate is listed as prime plus 3%, and the commission has typically seen prime plus 2%. Can you expand on why residents chose 3%?
I think some of our operations in other areas, not North Dakota, we've seen it at 3%, but I'm guessing that we copied this from another unit that we were involved with. So we're certainly we have no issue with reducing it to 2% if the commission wants us to.
And I have a question. I assume this would be for you, Gary. The current order that authorizes the pilot injection project, I assume that order can be terminated upon ratification and approval of this unit?
I assume, yeah, that's the case.
Okay, thank you.
I believe that's right.
And I agree.
Mr. Gallant,
Yes?
do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give into this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes?
Don, state your full name for the record, please.
Don Gallant,
And Don, by whom are you employed?
Residence Exploration
In what capacity?
Engineering Manager.
And you've testified for the commission previously?
Yes, I have.
Had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yes?
Offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
Motion granted.
Don, let's turn to the next exhibit in the packet, Exhibit 9. And what I'd like you to do is, as the other witnesses have done with their exhibits, first identify Exhibit 9 and then briefly discuss what's contained upon it.
Yes, Exhibit 9 is the Midale Reservoir properties for the Southwest Oak Charles Huber unit. The field parameters and the general information as written there. Formation, Mississippi and Charles, Midale Carbonate, average depth, minus 1896, oil water contact, minus 1910, and a trapping mechanism, structural, primary depletion, and solution gas. And the reservoir properties as listed. I don't know if you want me to read these properties, but the one thing to note is the original oil in place calculation is 1,241,544 barrels.
Why don't you also just very quickly cover porosity and water saturation?
Okay, the average porosity 15%, and the water saturation estimated 45%.
Okay, let's go to the next exhibit then, Exhibit 10.
Exhibit 10 is the volumes as of October 1st, which is really up to September 30th, primary production by time. This is the estimated ultimate volumes if we had not done water injection. And that estimated ultimate volumes of 55,000 barrels. Cumulative production to the end of September was 18,000 barrels, and remaining volumes 37,000 barrels.
And that would be on primary if the pilot project hadn't been done and if the commission were not to approve the proposed unitization. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, let's go to Exhibit 11.
Exhibit 11 is the primary production economic summary, showing the remaining reserves of 37,000 barrels, and then the 10% NPV, the value of $1,719,000.
Okay, so basically, you could make a profit on this well if you continue on, if you were to have continued on primary production. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, let's go to Exhibit 12.
Exhibit 12 is the projected production. It's the wedge, basically, of production for the water injection. If you look back on the plot to the left, that trough in red is September production prior to the injection performance, the impact, and it kind of goes up, and we start the forecast in November, when we started seeing impact of injection in October. So we're estimating, based on this plot, the wedge of production due to the injection, ultimate volumes of 91,000 barrels. And you see the cumulative production to November of 21,480 barrels. And then the remaining volumes of almost 70,000 barrels. And I'm not sure if you want to know this, but this is separate from this. January 2024 production, we've submitted to the commission here, and the well's producing at 86 barrels a day.
Okay. And maybe you could just quickly summarize, Don, what is the incremental production that you're likely to see if the commission, including the pilot program, that you would see if this unit is approved by the commission?
Incremental production, 50, 60 barrels a day.
Now, I'm talking about cumulative incremental.
Cumulative, 73,500 barrels.
Okay. All right, let's go on then to Exhibit 13. Can you tell us what Exhibit 13 is?
That's the projected production economic summary for the incremental of adding the injector. And remaining reserves are estimated at 73,500 barrels. And then the NPV at 10% of 3,366,000 barrels.
So, and as you testified earlier, the well without secondary recovery is economic, but the economics improve if you can go to a secondary recovery project. Is that a fair statement?
That is correct, yep.
Okay, let's go to 14.
Exhibit 14 is a summary of the incremental economics, and it's a little busy, but the oil in place calculations, 1.2 million barrels. Primary production estimated oil in place, 1.241. Cumulative oil to the end of November was 21,476 barrels. So the percentage of cumulative to the oil in place of 1.7% recovered. The ultimate primary to abandonment is estimated at 55,000 barrels, and that percent of ultimate primary to abandonment of the oil in place is 4.4%. And over on the right side at the top, the secondary production, that's the estimated incremental secondary production of 73,500 barrels, and the percentage of that to the oil in place of 5.9%. So primary plus secondary production, 128,500 barrels, and percentage to oil in place of 10.4%. And the economic summary. The summary, we used $70 a barrel average, and the unit operating costs of $779,500 and capital investment of $1.3 million. So the present value of 10% of the water flood is $3,366,200.
Okay, and then the next exhibit, Exhibit 15.
Exhibit 15 was attached to the application for the pilot water flood. And basically, it's just what our objective was for the Stratton 16 and 12 injector. We started the injection in September 15th, and this was our proposed what we believed it would do, and the volume that was acceptable over 24 months. We've been submitting performance reports since it started up injection, and that has been submitted to the commission monthly.
And is it a fair statement, Don, that in terms of operations of this proposed unit, if the application is granted, residents will likely not change operations in terms of production and injection?
That's correct.
Okay. And then let's go on to the last exhibit, which has been marked as Exhibit 16. Can you tell us what that is?
Yes, Exhibit 16 is the current wellbore schematic for the injector, Stratton 16 of 12.
That's the current configuration, is that correct?
That is correct.
And no, as you testified just a moment ago, no plan changes to that configuration if the unit is approved by the commission.
That's correct.
Don, just a few, what I'll refer to as statutory questions. In your opinion, is the unitized management operation and further development of the proposed Southwest Hope Huber unit reasonably necessary in order to effectively carry on secondary recovery operations that you have proposed?
Yes,
And in your opinion, is the proposed unitization of the Southwest Hope Huber unit feasible? Will it prevent waste, and will it, with reasonable probability, result in increased recovery of substantially more oil and gas from the proposed unit area than would otherwise be recovered?
yes,
And in your opinion, is the estimated additional cost of conducting unit operations for the proposed Southwest Hope Huber unit less than the value of the additional oil and gas that will be recovered?
yes,
And in your opinion, is the proposed unitization of the Southwest Hope Huber unit for the common good, and will it result in the general advantage of all owners of oil and gas rights within the proposed unit area?
yes.
Mr. Examiner, that's all the questions I have for this witness. We would offer the exhibits in cases 30663, which was one exhibit, and then exhibits 1 through 16 in case 30644. And I guess we're going to request that the record remain open. I'll probably have to consult with my client a little bit about how much time we're going to need for that, but that would conclude our testimony at this point in time.
Okay, the exhibits are admitted. We'll wait to determine a date as to when the record will remain open to. Any questions from the staff?
Don, would you be able to submit exhibits 11 and 13 as digital copies?
Yes,
And then could I have you turn to exhibit 9?
yes,
So your net pay thickness is listed as 15 feet. Is that the maximum for the area or the average for this tract?
that's average.
It appeared that your oil in place must have been calculated off of acre feet determined from your net pay map rather than that 15. Is that correct?
Yes,
In your exhibit 10, was that an exponential decline?
yes,
And then exhibit 12. Can I have you describe how you determine these breakpoints here? And in December of 2025, you have a drop, and then it seems that that formula might change in December of 2026.
those basically assumptions, I guess, that we would have fairly level production for a couple of years. And I guess we kind of assumed a volume, cumulative volume, and best fit this curve that way.
Was there a formula change between December of 2025 and December of 2026?
No, no,
And could I have you turn to exhibit 14?
yes,
That oil in place number was determined using your tract map, or your net pay map, as you previously mentioned. Is that acre feet number derived from that net pay map as well?
yes,
Then lastly, exhibit 15.
Sorry, which one?
15.
Yes.
When submitting pilot numbers, the depth of fluid was given as joints. What joint length were you using for those fluid levels?
An average of 31 feet.
Thank you.
Don, on Exhibit 14, and I guess this could be Exhibit 9 as well. Can you revise those? So if I use your givens for the OIP calculations for the Huber unit on Exhibit 14, I come up with about 1.7 million barrels rather than 1.2. I think it's a B sub OI issue. I think if you use the 1.1 from Exhibit 9, you actually come out with 1.2. Could you just go back and look at those numbers, make sure that they are correct, and so that we can calculate these numbers using the given numbers that you are providing?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Anything further?
Mr. Examiner, I'm thinking we set perhaps March 6th of 2024 as a deadline to submit exhibits. In the event that we put things together more quickly than that and we submit them, we'll just let the commission know, and then the record can be closed earlier. But I mean, there've been a lot of requests for information. I want to obviously give my clients plenty of time to put that together. Gary, do you think that'll give you plenty of time if we leave the record open until March 6th to submit the additional information?
Yes.
Okay.
The record will remain open till March 6th.
Thank
And
you.
if there's nothing further, that concludes our hearing for case numbers 30663 and 30664, and that concludes our hearings for the day. We're off the record at